fundamental advance in artificial intelligence. We call it agentic AI.
Like interpret my intent and plan and get it done, right? So that's where I think some of these proactive agent stuff comes in.
And I think as we move into these agentic systems, there's a whole big category of new things we have to learn to address.
The agent is not only capable of like reading some data, understanding some information, it can actually code its way or uses APIs, through whatever task it's trying to achieve.
Right now, we are focused on agent force.
At the same time, I think there'll be an agentic web.
The word agentic has a problem. A year ago, it used to mean a specific technical thing. But today, it means whatever the person trying to sell you something wants it to mean. I have had a front row seat to this. I've been building in the customer experience automation space for almost a decade now. And I've seen this word agentic go from an engineering term to a marketing wrapper in the last 18 months. And that's a problem. Last year, Simon Wilson, who is a very well-known engineer, got so frustrated with this problem that he just asked the internet, what is an agent? He collected 211 different definitions. Yes, 211. And then he was able to group them into 13 different camps. 13 groups of people all using the same word and all of them meaning 13 different things. So go to a board meeting and ask what agentic AI means, and you will hear it's AI that thinks for itself. You go to a product demo and ask what is agentic AI, and you would hear it's AI that just works on your behalf. And then you go on LinkedIn and you would find somebody who has changed the name of their chatbot to agentic assistant and didn't change a single line of code. That's really what's happening in the market. Now, the people actually building this stuff, the engineers at Anthropic who are shipping it to production, have a much simpler, very boring definition of agent. But before I get to that, let me explain you where did this word come from, because it's not a new word. Agentic comes from agency, the ability to act independently with purpose towards a certain goal. Humans have agency in the fullest sense. We form our goals, we act on them, and especially we're accountable for the outcomes. AI borrows from that selectively. It doesn't form its own goals. It pursues the goals that you give it. But it independently can figure out how to go and achieve those goals. And that gap between what the word suggests and what the systems actually do, that's where most of the confusion lies. Now the word agent in AI goes back almost 30 years. In 1995, Stuart Russell and Peter Norvig wrote a book that taught a generation of computer science students what AI actually is. And in that book, they defined an agent as something that can perceive its environment and act on it. That's it. Sensors in, actions out. And by that definition, your thermostat is an agent. So is your Roomba. It was a broad academic definition, and nobody outside of computer science cared about this term for a good number of years. And then large language models, LLMs happened, and the word got dusted off. The first place it showed up was in coding. You could have agents which could write code, run it, see the error, fix it, run it again, basically in a loop. And then research tools which could browse the web, gather information, and make a report. These were the first kinds of agents that got popular. But then this word jumped the fence. It jumped out of the developer world into almost every other industry, be it finance, legal, healthcare, customer support. And here is the thing, when it arrived in customer support, it entered into an industry that had years of automation history. I can tell you this firsthand because in our journey of building towers, before AI came into picture, everything used to run on structured journeys, decision trees. If a customer says this, do this. If the customer picks an option B, go there. And those structured journeys earned their place. They were easy to set up, quick to deploy, and did the job for the basic FAQ tier. A customer wants to know your return policy, your store hours, or reset their password. A well-built chatbot did all of this just fine. Hundreds and thousands of companies use these structured, well-built chatbots. And they worked for what they were designed to do. The problem wasn't really the chatbots. The problem was what happened next. The marketing departments took the word agentic and slapped it on everything. And all of a sudden, every FAQ bot from 2018 got relabeled as an AI agent. The actual technical meaning got smeared across 1,000 pitch decks until nobody could tell the difference between what was actually new and what was just a rebrand. So you must be wondering what actually changed in the last 5 years. How is this AI agent different from the bots that existed 5-6 years ago? The definition that builders have landed on comes down to just 4 words: model, tools, loop, and a goal. That's it. Agentic AI is an AI model that runs tools in a loop to achieve a certain goal. Let me try to unpack each of these 4 words and try to come up with some realistic examples so that it's easier to understand. Let's start with the first one, the model. The model is the brain, a large language model. It reads the customer's message, understands what the customer wants to say, decides what it wants to do next. By itself, a model can just talk. For instance, it can answer a question about your return policy, but it cannot actually process the return. This is what the chatbots did, but it's also the ceiling, which brings me to the second point, the tools. Tools is what breaks the ceiling. Tools are basically the hands. They basically give connections to the LLM so that it can interact with your internal systems. Look up an order, issue a refund, check the availability, or book an appointment. All of these are actions which need tools. And these tools could mean a tool like a Shopify or a Salesforce, which are basically connections to your internal systems which allow the model to take these actions. Now, let's come to the third point, the loop. The loop is what makes it different from anything that you've used before. The model doesn't just do one thing and stop. It does a thing, looks at the result, decides what to do next, does that, looks at the result again, and again decides what to do next. Over and over until the job is done. What I'm trying to say is an agent is as different from a chatbot as a self-driving car is from a driving stick. One is reacting step by step to your inputs, and the other one is consuming everything around its environment and navigating towards a destination on its own. Now, let me show you what a loop looks like in practice. Let's say a customer types in, I want to change my booking from Wednesday to Friday. A chatbot would probably hand them a FAQ page or probably share a link where they can go and manage their booking. That's pretty much what a simple bot would do. An agentic system, on the other hand, would first up validate the user or authenticate the user, pull up their booking, see if there is an availability on Friday. If not, it would look for some other dates. Then share these slots or the flights with the customer. Check with the customer if the flight makes sense for them. Change the booking, send them a confirmation email. It would run all of these 7 or 8 steps in a loop. And finally, the goal. This is what ties all of this together. All of this is pointed towards an outcome, not a response, an outcome. The customer didn't really want information about how to change the flight booking. They wanted to change the flight booking. But where does this goal come from? The goal comes from some kind of a trigger. Maybe the customer sends a message or a form gets submitted, or probably there is an entry in your CRM that gets updated. There's definitely some input or a trigger which initiates this goal. The agent doesn't really need a human at every step, but the goal definitely comes from a human or from some other system. And this is actually the key thing that people get wrong. Agentic doesn't mean self-directed. It means once the goal is set, it can independently pursue everything towards that goal. So this is where it gets real for you. Think about how customer support has worked for a long time. The old model was simple. Automate the routine stuff and escalate everything else. Your bot collects some context, creates a ticket, it ends up in a queue. Hours later, a human agent comes in, reads the ticket, maybe loops in another team member, and finally responds to the customer. And maybe in certain cases, the customer has to explain the issue all over again. This is how customer support used to be working, but it's slow and it's fragmented. An agentic system changes that equation completely. Already has the context, it has access to your systems, it reasons through what resolution actually requires, and then it just executes. Don't think of it like a tool. Think of it like a customer experience head who can actually call the shots and then just execute. But here's the thing that nobody talks about. The failure modes, that change too, and in a way that matters a lot more. When a chatbot gets confused, it gives the wrong answer. Annoying, but mostly harmless. But when an agentic system gets confused, it takes the wrong action. It issues refund to the wrong customer, or it might just reschedule a wrong appointment, or update a wrong shipping address. That's not a patience problem. That's a problem of money, trust, and even compliance. And this exactly is why design matters as much as the capability. When we built our platform, we didn't just hand over AI a bunch of tools and say, good luck. We built a whole structure around it. And let me talk about what this structure means. Some things the agent decides freely. When to look up something, when to ask a clarifying question, how to phrase a response, when to use a tool, which tool to use. All of these things the agent can decide freely. But the actual steps that write to your systems, account update, a booking change, an appointment being booked, all of these can run as structured flows. The agent can choose when it should run freely and when it should invoke a structured workflow. And when it enters a structured workflow, it goes through step by step, no creativity. It just does the job in a very, very reliable, structured manner. Because creativity in a refund flow is how you end up on the front page of Reddit. That's the quiet insight behind good agentic design. It's not really about how much you can let the AI do. It's about which parts of your journeys should be deterministic so that you can let AI do the rest. Which brings us to the question which almost everybody asks is, if the agent can do all of this, should I just replace our support team? Honestly, not yet. You don't want to do that. And not for the reason you'd think. It's not a capability problem. It's a responsibility problem. If a human does something wrong, you can talk to them, you can coach them, and you can hold them accountable. Holding a human accountable is a thing you can't do with AI. You can only hold humans responsible for something. You can't hold AI accountable for something. What has changed is how much the AI agents can handle compared to what they could do 3 months back. And that line keeps moving. So the next time you meet someone and they say that their product is agentic, you just ask them one question. What can it actually do in my systems? Not what can it say, not what questions it can answer. What can it really, really do? If the answer is that it answers your questions and when something needs to be done, it passes off to a human agent, that's a chatbot. Maybe a great one, but there's nothing new about it. If the answer is that it can update the CRM entries, book appointments, cancel appointments, change bookings, issue a refund, and it knows what it can do and where does it want a human to jump in, now you're talking about something real. 211 definitions. One question that cuts through all of them. From an AI that responds to an AI that resolves. That's agentic AI.